In the studio to discuss the proposed increase in the value-added tax are Mr. Laoye Jayola, who is the CEO of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Justina Okoro, she is the president for the Chartered Institute of Taxation here in Nigeria. Thank you, ma'am. And I'm so sorry, I think I massacred your name.
Okay.
My apologies.
It's
I don't always see too well. And also in the studio is the President, National Association of Nigeria Readers, Mr. Ken Okaoha. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you very much.
And finally, Mr. Ayo Bankole Akinjoye. Is that correct?
Akintujoye.
Akintujoye. He works as a consultant in business strategy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, I want to start with you, Dr. Justina. In that little video that we saw, we heard about the way tax works in Nigeria, where in the life of a product circle, almost at every stage, VAT is added. I understand that this isn't always the way VAT works in other places, that there are people who only add VAT at the end of that process. So my first question is, why is our own slightly different, and does it matter in the context of the conversation that we're having?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Once again, I'm here to represent the president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, who is unavoidably absent. I'm a council member of the institute. Okay. Now, back to your question. The process here is VAT is charged in stages, right from the manufacturing or production segment up to the sales point. The essence is that this passes through so that everybody can have a feel of it. But at the end of the day, it is the final consumer that bears the brunt. Why is it so? Each of these other stages, you are entitled to make a claim of what you have paid. Now, if you are into manufacturing, for example, you must have bought some materials for the purpose of production. At the point of buying that material, somebody else has also charged VAT to the goods you have purchased. And by the time you produce yours, you also add VAT. So the difference, yours is called output VAT. What you purchase, the VAT you have paid, is input VAT. At the end of the month, you net off the output from the input, and it is the difference you pay to the government. So it goes like that and like that.
Is this the most efficient way of charging VAT? Why do other people not choose that? Because I understand that input and output. If you do it slightly different, where at the end of you charge VAT only once at the end of the process, then what happens is that people tend to be able to net off, you know, what they pay in versus what they take out. But in this process, people aren't able to recover.
Yeah, people are able to recover. I think, you know, every climb you need to study what is good, what is workable. A lot of studies went through this before VAT came on board. And that is what could possibly work in Nigeria. There are other countries where people are sincere. People could come out and declare what they have. The process doesn't work the same. You and I know that.
So it's a check and balance to ensure that.
It's a check and balances.
Right.
So at the end of the day, nobody loses out of it.
Okay. Let me turn to the CEO of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. What sort of value does VAT add to an economy, and specifically here now, the Nigerian economy, if any?
Well, VAT is just a form of taxation. And if you look at, generally, the tax level in Nigeria is being noted to be very low. It's about under 5% of the entire GDP. Whereas in other climes, you see things that run as like 20, 15%. I think at a point in time, because we found oil and we paid attention to oil, nobody actually looked at the role taxes play in funding government revenue. And so if you look at VAT, VAT itself is just less than 1% of our total GDP. And if you listen to other regions, we are listening to within this region, it's almost about 10%. So in Ghana and all those areas you've talked about, it's significantly higher than that. So VAT in our level is just 1%. It's a
Okay, but
source
let me
of
ask a
revenue.
question here, because I've also seen data that suggests actually the size of our GDP that is based on consumption is almost 73%. And on that basis alone, if you calculate that amount, Nigeria should be doing something like 4 trillion in VAT. But at the moment, we're doing just a little bit over 1 trillion. I mean, I've seen those numbers put out by analysts.
So it simply says that our collection system is very poor and porous. We need to be more. Part of the things we actually will have loved to see is not whether or not we increase VAT, but rather to see how efficient are we with the processes of collection. How do you ensure, I mean, I listened to your intro, for instance, how do you ensure that the impact of VAT is not felt significantly by those who are within the bottom of the pyramid? There is a data that is clear that shows that 97% of VAT collected in Nigeria is paid by just 3% of people. 3%. The bulk of all the people who are chasing MSMEs actually contribute the balance. And the cost of collection is even higher than what we get from them. So what one would have expected is tidy up the process, have a threshold by saying, if your total revenue is below a particular amount, you are completely exempted from tax. That is what happens in other climes. And you then focus and you're efficient on ensuring that you collect as much as possible from those that you collect from. So I do agree with you that, you see, the 5%, 10%, we're just chasing many people that we shouldn't chase. If we tidy it up very, very well and close the net and make the process a lot smoother, which will get a lot more than we are getting, and then we will not have the impact, the pressure on the MSMEs.
Let me bring in Mr. Ibankole here. The work you've been doing with businesses, I mean, where is the problem that Doctor has identified? He said that there's a problem of collection. And that then, to people like us who don't understand how tax works, seems like government being lazy, really, because you would have thought, well, 3% generating tax, why are you not taking money from other people? What, in your view, is the real problem, the tangible problem?
Okay, thank you again for having me. You've pretty much described what the problem is. It's really laziness. Government is unwilling to apply the rigor that it will require to adopt other channels of revenue generation. So, compliance rate, tax compliance rate is just about 12%, right? And even the VAT that we are focusing on, Lagos alone pays 55%. The FCT pays about 20%, and the rest comes from the other 35 or thereabout states. So,
okay, so let me understand what you're saying.
Okay.
The bulk of our tax collected in Nigeria, the VAT collected in Nigeria comes from Lagos and Abuja, which means this increase is going to disproportionately affect businesses in these two places.
Exactly.
Now, ma'am, this has real implications, doesn't it, for growth in those places, which are the places that a lot of Nigerians actually look to as places where things are going well. No?
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so can you talk to us a little bit about that, what the implications are?
Yeah, I will want to approach it from two angles. If you want to look at the implication from the area he is talking about, Lagos, we all know, is the sixth largest economy in Africa for now. And a lot of economic activities take place in Lagos. As a matter of fact, 70% of our total tax, this 5.3 trillion FIRS generated in 2018, 70% of it comes from Lagos. Now, but that's notwithstanding, there are reasons government had for wanting to increase the VAT. Some have been mentioned here, and we shouldn't maybe try to jettison that part. The reasons, clearly, we are all aware we are having budgetary deficit, fiscal deficit. This VAT is meant to bridge the gap. That is number one. Number two, it's also meant to boost the revenue at federal level and at state level and local government level. And then, of course, number 3 by government is to provide infrastructure. I think what we should look at effectively is the application of the VAT collected, is the framework of our fiscal policy. We need to review it. Okay. What are the things we need to review? We need to look at, let me look at some measures. One,
before we do, actually, because this is sort of the heart of the conversation
yes,
we need to have, I'd like to bring in Ms. Agoa, because I'd like to find out, as a businessman, whether you are convinced by the reasons the government has given for the need to increase VAT, as explained by Dr. Justina.
Thank you very much. I think if we're going to look at the reasons that government has really preferred as germane, we need to look at the origin of tax, the VAT, essentially. And I think you would pardon me to state that in 1993, the value-added tax came up as an act of parliament, Act 102. And this was reviewed in 2007 as an amendment. So the act was amended in 2007. Now, if we are going to, in this age, talk about an increase in VAT, I think we need to follow a procedure, a legislative procedure, not an executive fiat.
No,
that's
but
one concern.
to be fair to them, they have said they are going to consult.
They are going.
Just one second. We can't assume that they are going to go with an executive view.
They are going, but announcing this does not really help us. But I think it's also
what are you saying? You think there should have been consultation prior to the Federal Executive Council actually?
A process of consultation would have really gotten a buy-in. Nobody, like my colleague has said here, nobody, I think if we are all sane, we should look at the fact that the revenue of government is depreciating in other sectors. And I think countries are moving, in other climes, moving towards tax, revenue generation. But I think it's also important for us to look at what it portends for the average business actor.
Okay.
And I want to summarize by telling you this. The average trader in the country pays about 38 different taxes, and I'm going to tell you this later on.
Okay. We're going to have to take a quick break. Please don't go away.